And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Dr. Shankar, the founder and CEO of Eartheye Space Singapore, for a presentation titled Near Real-Time Situational Awareness from Space. Dr. Shankar, please take the floor.
Assalamu alaikum. So, how many of you remember the days before Uber or Careem in this part of the world, where you would rely on public transport, or worse still, sometimes you rely on taxis which would never come, especially if you had a soccer game on a Friday evening and it's pouring cats and dogs. Anybody remember those days? No? You all had your multiple cars and you really didn't have to rely on rideshare? Most part of the world, that's a horrible experience, including my own country in Singapore. It would have been very hard to get a ride home, especially after one of those evenings. And you had taxi companies, but you would wait. Even now you would wait. Yes. So why I'm framing this talk in that context is because we are going to talk about situational awareness. A situational awareness requires near real-time access to data and information. The advisor to SLRB talked about fuel in his recipe. In his recipe book of 6 items, he talked about fuel. You might have the Ferrari or the Porsche, the greatest GIS systems, but if you don't have the fuel, the Ferrari is just a beautiful piece of metal, and so is every other fancy car. So how do you get the fuel and different types of fuel into your vehicle of choice is about my talk. So it's about near real-time situational awareness. And the situational awareness has these 4 phases. So you observe, obviously, that's a start. You contextualize. You need to understand what that means to have observed, and in your context, what does it mean? Because you could observe the same thing, 2 different people, but it might mean different things to either of them. And then you make a decision in your context, and then you act. So the information velocity is the one that drives this sort of the OODA loop, or this observe, contextualize, decision, act. So can we enhance this awareness from space? As you might have realized, the name of the company I represent is Eartheye Space, so this is all going to be space talk. And yes, you can enhance situational awareness from space, but unfortunately not very much as it's done today. Now what I mean by that is this. So let's say you live in a place where there is constant cloud, where I come from, Southeast Asia, constantly cloudy in most part of the world. And I'm sure even here this morning when I looked up, it's a bit cloudy, but it got better. So, and then you have floods. If you're relying on optical, what's going to happen? That's what you're likely to see. But then you will switch to, okay, let me find something that can penetrate the cloud. Let's go radar. Brilliant. How do you know what is cloud and what is not in that last picture? Yeah, wherever that's going. Anyway, so I'm sorry. Okay, right. That explains. So you wouldn't know where to locate flood in that radar SAR data. So that's just one issue. For those who are used to prosecuting data from space with naked eyes or through unprocessed information. Lots more issues. Some situations require persistent awareness. It's not enough to take one snapshot. You need to keep collecting to understand the situation that's unfolding. Some require information as fast as possible. That can be in hours. Hours can make the difference between life and death in some scenarios. Some requires regular updates. I want an update every hour, every 2 hours. Some require very large areas to be covered. Some requires very high resolution details, high fidelity data, very high resolution. Some require the 1 + 1 = 3 value. Does anyone want to make a guess? What does that mean? I source and fuse 2 different types of data, so I get better intelligence than I would get with either or. Some require invisible bands to make sense of the situation, such as infrared. Most people need all of the above affordably. And we are in a rich country here, but lots of people can't afford this. Right? So it's not a single source to a situational awareness. Situational awareness, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, is multisensory, it's multimodal. It's not pretty picture. It is what you can't see, what you can't make sense out of, but yet you have to. The idea of sourcing, fusing, and acting is the hallmark of situational awareness. So that is how a situational awareness capability ought to look like. All the possible sensors that you can access. Have you heard of the phrase horses for courses? Depending on your use case, depending on the situation that you are presented with, your ability to get data when and where you need, with what sensor you need to solve that problem at hand. It could be the multispectral or optical at 15 centimeter, or it could be the SAR at 20 meter, or even the SAR at 25 centimeter, infrared, greenhouse gas. But it's not just imaging only. What if you're after illegal transshipment? What if you're after insurgency? What if you're after distress? Earth observation is beyond just imaging, as you all would know. Anything that you can sense from space. RF, AIS, when I say RF, AIS is a type of RF, but RF comms, AIS, ADS-B, to track planes, any RF that can be geolocated. How do you get all of this data in one place so you can call them and use them like you would use an Uber? On demand, don't need to own any of them. Because no single entity can have all of these sensors under their belt. As in, put up the satellites in space so that they can command them. Not possible. Right? No country has this either, even if you are the most resourceful, because these are all the different sensors that need to be available to you, just like you would get access to them on demand, so that you can solve those unfolding situational awareness issues. So that is what we did. We became known as the Uber for satellites, simply because we host over 500 plus satellites on a single platform with a single interface to task any or all of them on demand. No contracts. No hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars contracts. Just like Uber and Uber Cash. Deposit, draw down. Any and all of these sensors and growing. So that is one part of the solution of getting that situational awareness. When you have a structure like this, an architecture like this, you also can do one other thing, which is you become the Uber Eats for satellites. So not only are you able to task any of these sensors on demand, you can also combine them on the same workflow. Just like you can have Uber Eats and you can pick up different cuisine from different restaurants in the same Uber Eats order. Now, why would you do that? That is the idea of multi-sensor, multimodality. The ability to pick up different data over your area of interest at the time of interest so you can source and fuse and get better intelligence. Better information will lead to better intelligence, which will lead to better decisioning. But the seeing does not mean knowing. You can see a lot of things, but it doesn't mean you actually know what is happening. So that requires contextualization, which is the second part. So yes, you bring the data into your GIS, you do further post-processing. You do automated remote sensing workflows like indices, whether it's on multispectral, hyperspectral, SAR, thermal, every sensor modality can deliver different information through indices, band maths. You have AI workflows. We heard the whole morning about lots and lots of very interesting GeoAI use cases. Computer vision, machine learning, deep learning, Gen AI, LLMs, and so forth. What's beyond that? Gen AI. So today we talk about LLMs and agentic AIs. What's happening next? Who knows? Somebody's got a crystal ball, we'll probably figure that out. But each one of them has its pros and cons. So near real-time situational awareness relies on that one thing, that information velocity. Because data can be fast, but information needs to be faster. What if you had access to 500 plus satellites and you could collect data within a few hours? 2 to 3 hours from tasking a satellite or a constellation or multiple constellations to getting the data, but turning the data into information, actionable information and intelligence. If that were to take hours and days, that's a problem. So we went a step further and integrated a model, a framework where the data to information is in 2 to 3 minutes. 2 to 3 minutes, that's our service level agreement. You task a satellite, you get the data, we deliver the flood map in 2 to 3 minutes. We count trees in 2 to 3 minutes. We deforestation in 2 to 3 minutes. Everything is in 2 to 3 minutes. So what does it mean? It is about that information velocity, delivering that information right now before further processing can be done. You would still take the data and information into your GIS and other systems for further processing. But we are talking about situational awareness, near real time. You don't have time to wait. So turning pixels into information, turning geolocated signals into action has to happen in near real time. So 2 to 3 minutes is what gets delivered. Right? So we call them the feed, just like Bloomberg feed. Bloomberg terminal delivering feed, we deliver those feeds in 2 to 3 minutes from the data. So let me see if this video will work. just to give a glimpse of the kind of capabilities. If you went to our website, you will see lots and lots of feeds we deliver. We deliver a feed every other week, depending on the different use cases and customer requirements. But imagine if you were going to get a situational awareness that's unfolding middle of the night, 2 to 3 in the morning when you're sleeping. You're not getting up to do that. So how do you automate these workflows? You all heard of tip and queues. You heard of event-based workflows. So the platform offers the ability to construct workflows, so even while you are sleeping, the sensors are working together. Hundreds of sensors across different modalities, sensor modalities, are working together while you are sleeping. So this is an example of a dark vessel. We all know what dark vessel phenomenon is. AIS gets switched off. How do you go figure that vessel? Where is that vessel hiding? As an example of it, right? But you can construct this in any use case context. So the faster decisioning does not also mean smarter decisioning, right? Because you could get to faster decisioning because of the capability we just talked about. You have access to hundreds of satellites, on-demand tasking, turning the data into information. But smarter decisioning is going to be because it's continuous. Because you can't observe something at a snapshot, contextualize and make a decision until you understand the pattern that is emerging. So that is why you need an Uber-like capability. Because any country, any institution which might have access to what's on the left side will always be constrained by relying on taxis and relying on public transport. It's not either or, it's augmented. You still need your sovereign capability, but you also need to have access to Uber and Careem for satellites so that you can get that information when and where you want, with what sensors that you want, in the context of that situational awareness which you are continuously monitoring and adapting and deciding, observing, contextualizing, deciding, acting, and the OODA loop continues. So please check this out. That's our website. And I will leave you with one other video, because situational awareness is not just about being aware of what's happening on Earth. Situational awareness is also about understanding what's happening above. So this capability is launching this was launched at IAC 2025 in Sydney. I live in Sydney, late last year. And this is coming live middle of this year, where one platform, one workflow, situational awareness on Earth, situational awareness in space. You can look down, you can look up using the same workflow. World's first, we're going to start with hyperspectral, in space first, characterizing objects in space, and correlate with what's happening on Earth. Thank you very much. When it's launched? That's a very important question. Thank you.